Hey, what's going on guys? RVZ Stealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to give you my opinion on the best AD carries for Season 4 patch 4.18. So let's get right into it. First up on my list, I have Caitlyn. Pros to Caitlyn are she is a very strong laner with her Q and her super long auto attack range. Well, I shouldn't say super long, but she's got the longest auto attack range at level 1 for any AD carry in the game, so she can use that to poke down her opponents pretty easily and then just zone them from there. She has an escape on her E, and I believe that unless you're really good at positioning and you're really strong and confident in your AD carry skills, then I would recommend playing an AD carry in solo queue who has some sort of an escape, because you can't always rely on your teammates or your support for peel, so playing an AD carry who does have some sort of an escape is definitely advisable. She has a strong ultimate as well, and she can use it to either finish off low health targets, or she can use it late game to chunk down squishy targets before the fight even happens. She's also pretty easy to play in my opinion, and she's got a really strong late game as well. Her traps are also great for zoning control if you're sieging down towers, because she can plant her traps in a line in front of the enemy team's tower, and it reduces the places that they can move, and because of that, your team can get free shots off on the tower, and unless they step on the traps, then they won't be able to move forward to engage on you. Cons to Caitlyn are she is pretty mana hungry, so be careful about spamming her abilities in lane, and she is also quite weak when behind. Caitlyn thrives in the early game, and if you don't get ahead in the early game, then I find it really hard to come back as her, so because of her long auto attack range, you have to take advantage of that. And whenever your headshot passive comes up, you want to make sure you're either using that on the enemy champion or you're zoning them when it's up, because it does do a lot of damage and you're pretty much going to win every single trade when it is up. Next on my list, I have Jinx. Pros to Jinx are she's got an attack speed steroid on her Q, which makes her pretty much the best tower pushing AD carry in the game in my opinion. She has good CC for an AD carry because her W and her E are both CC abilities. She synergizes well with certain supports, like for example Blitzcrank and Leona. She's really strong with them because, for example, if Leona uses her E on an enemy and then stuns them with her Q, what Jinx can do is she can place her Flame Chompers behind them, and then she can, the enemy is either forced to flash over the Flame Chompers or they're forced to straight up fight you, so it's a really strong combo, and if you haven't tried it out, then I'd recommend it. She has good poke in lane with her Q and her W, and she also has her global ultimate, which she can use to finish off low health targets across the map, and I absolutely hate it if I get finished off by a Jinx ult or Ezreal ult across the map, and she can also use it to finish off low health targets in lane as well. Cons to Jinx are she doesn't have any mobility, so I wouldn't recommend playing Jinx unless you're really confident in your positioning as an AD carry, because like I said, you can't always rely on your support to peel for you, and because Jinx has no mobility, the chances of you getting caught out are a lot higher. She's also semi-skill shot reliant because her ultimate and her W are both skill shots. Next on my list, I have Lucian. Pros to Lucian are he's a really good lane bully. With his Q, it gives him really good burst and it gives him really good trading potential as well. He's got a strong ultimate, which he can use to finish off the low health targets, or he can also use it to clear waves really well. He has good mobility with his E, and he's got really good Yomu synergy because whenever he has his Yomus active, then his ultimate will deal a lot more damage. He has a pretty strong mid game too, and he's easy to win lane as in my opinion. I rarely lose lane as Lucian unless my support gets caught out early game or something like that, because he does have a really strong early game and he can use his Q to get some free damage off pretty easily if you can use it through minions and then hit the target behind the minions. It's really easy to get free damage off that way. And the Braum Lucian lane is pretty OP still because of the double shot that Lucian has on his passive, and if you haven't tried the Braum Lucian lane, then you've probably been under a rock for the past while, but if you haven't, then I would definitely recommend trying it out. And he's also a really strong tower pusher because of his double shot passive. Lucian, he does have a short range on his auto attack, so he has to get up closer to deal damage, which sometimes will bite you because in teamfights you obviously don't want to get too close as an AD carry, and if you use your E to E into the fight, then you're going to be at a disadvantage because you won't have any way of getting out, and because of that short auto attack range, you even have to get closer now, so that's one con to him. His E also does cost mana now at the lower ranks, and he also does not have any CC for an AD carry. Next on my list is Tristana, and yes, Tristana is not number 1 on my list anymore, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as to why she isn't number 1. But pros to Tristana she does have great CC with her W and her ultimate. She has super long range come late game, which she can use to stay really far back and still deal a lot of damage. She has grievous wounds on her E, which means the heal, the summoner spell heal, won't heal for as much as it would if you put your E on the enemy champion, which can help you win a lot of 1v1 fights against the enemy AD carry. She's probably got the best late game as an AD carry in my opinion, and she's got great self-peel as well, and this is probably one of the best attributes to Tristana because you, as an AD carry, you want to have some sort of gap closer, and Tristana has a really long range one in her W, so she can use that to jump out if she gets caught, and then she can also use her ultimate to knock any targets back that are coming towards her, and that just makes it really easy for her to kite and just get a lot of damage off on her enemies without them getting damage off on her. She is also pretty easy to play, and she's strong at all stages in the game. She also has an attack speed steroid on her Q, so you don't really have to prioritize building attack speed if you're going to max that out. Cons to Tristana are the nerfs are coming. Her ultimate recently got nerfed where it is on a longer cooldown now, and I definitely think that they're going to continue to nerf Tristana, or they're going to buff other AD carries. Counters are now being figured out to Tristana, and in lane Lucian and Corki are 2 champions that counter her pretty hard, and she can't really have success against a good Corki or a Lucian because they just do a lot more damage than her early and mid game. So number 1 on my list is Corki. Pros to Corki are he has super strong poke with his ultimate and his Q. He's got a really strong early game, which is why one of the reasons why he's number 1 on my list. There's no AD carry that can really trade with him early game. He's a really strong lane bully as well because of his Q. He has a long range escape, which is really strong in his W, and he is a mid-game monster. Once he picks up his Trinity Force, he just does so much damage, and he can pretty much 1v1 any AD carry in the game once he picks up his Triforce. He also does AP and AD damage, so it's hard for enemies to prioritize items against Corki. Cons to Corki are he doesn't have any CC. He also has a long cooldown on his escape, so you gotta be careful. You don't want to use it to engage in a fight unless you're sure that you won't have to use it to get out. And he does fall off late game, but I think he's number 1, or I believe that he is the best AD carry right now because he has such a strong mid game and such a strong early game, and that's where games are usually won and lost. So if you can't have a good early game as an AD carry, then you won't be able to get your items, and because Corki does have such a strong early and mid game, he's able to get his items and just be stronger than the AD carry on the enemy team, and I rarely lose lane as Corki because he's super strong because of his poke, and like I said, once he picks up his Triforce, he can pretty much 1v1 any AD carry in the game. So honorable mentions on my list are Kog'Maw, Vayne, and Draven. So Kog'Maw is an AD carry who's fallen off my list this time, and that's because he doesn't have any mobility. And if you do have good positioning as an AD carry though, then Kog'Maw is a really strong pick because he does do a crap load of damage come late game. And if you are confident in your positioning as an AD carry, then Kog'Maw is still a really strong pick. But if you are either new to AD carry or you aren't very confident in your positioning, then I would recommend playing one of the champions on my list. I also have Vayne as an honorable mention. She's got a really strong late game, but she doesn't have the best early game, which is why she isn't on my list. She also doesn't have any sort of wave clear, so she isn't on my list because of those reasons. And Draven is also, he's a pretty strong pick if you can get ahead, and he does a load of damage with his Q. He's also a little bit harder to play though because he does have to catch his Q to do a lot of damage, and I find that it's hard to do that when you're in team fights. You can't always catch your Q, and because of that he's not on my list because he is a little bit harder to play and he's not the best champion for all players. But if you're a good Draven player, then definitely play him because he can do a load of damage if he can catch his Qs in team fights. So that is all for the video. If you guys enjoyed, then be sure to like and subscribe for more League of Legends content. And if you're wondering why I didn't include a certain AD carry on my list, then be sure to comment below and I'll get back to you shortly on that. But that's all for the video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. I will see you in my next video.